Welcome to Defense Priorities video series reviewing the newly released National Defense Strategy. I'm Jennifer Kavanagh, Director of Military Analysis at Defense Priorities, and I'll be breaking down the NDS with leading defense and foreign policy experts. We'll discuss what it gets right, what it gets wrong, and what it means for restraint and U.S. grand strategy going forward. My first guest is Senior Fellow and Director of the National Security Reform Program at the Stimson Center, Dan Grazier, and we will be focusing first on the NDS's Defense Industrial Base section. So Dan, tell us a little bit about what the National Defense Strategy says about the U.S. Defense Industrial Base. What are the goals that it lays out, and how does it suggest that the United States should achieve those goals over the next 3 years?
Sure. Thanks, Jennifer. So the National Defense Strategy says that the current defense industrial base does not have enough capacity to meet all the security needs for the United States military. And that was not terribly surprising because policymakers have been saying the exact same thing ever since I arrived in Washington now more than a decade ago. Like every year, it seems, we have lawmakers and defense industry leaders and even uniformed military leaders saying that the defense industrial base is not large enough, does not have enough capacity to meet all their needs. And every year there seems to be a budget proposal to increase spending to make the defense industrial base a little more robust. And so this latest version of the NDS is just kind of a rehash of what has been said since I've been watching this closely for more than a decade now. But now they just want to add even more money to the whole process, hoping to produce better outcomes.
So should we be optimistic that things are going to change this time? Is there anything new, any sort of a groundbreaking proposal that this national defense strategy makes that previous administrations haven't? Or are we expecting that this will pretty much be business as usual going forward?
Well, I'm a little skeptical about how effective this is going to be, simply because just throwing more money at the same system isn't really going to produce better results. I mean, there are reasons why every year more money is appropriated to solve this capacity problem, and every year the problem remains. And in some cases, it gets worse. I looked up just to give you one example. I looked up the stats on the submarine industrial base. Now, this is a big deal because of AUKUS, because we need to build extra attack submarines for our allies. Now, between 2013 and 2023, the submarine industrial base got an influx of nearly $6 billion to increase capacity because they wanted to increase the number of ships or the number of boats that could be turned out. Well, since 2015, the industrial base could produce 2 Virginia-class attack submarines a year. And then we added more money to it, and now the shipbuilding or the submarine industrial base can turn out 1.3 boats a year. So we've added money, but yet the capacity has actually gone down. So, just because of that, and because there isn't really any proposed changes other than adding more money to the same system, I don't expect any dramatic outcomes. I just expect us to spend more money and get even less capacity.
So, from the perspective of trying to conserve resources, this is a really bad news story. But from the perspective of someone like me who would like to see a smaller military footprint, I don't know. Am I really concerned that we can't produce more weapons and more guns? I mean, that sounds like maybe not such a bad thing. Does the United States really need more industrial capacity to produce weapons and military hardware across the board? Or is what we have sort of enough if we were to accept a smaller, reduced footprint military strategy?
Well, I certainly don't think we need to increase capacity across the board. When you read the entire National Defense Strategy, the first time I went through the whole thing, all I could think was, well, where the trade-offs? Because it's the whole document is a yes and document. We need to be able to fight China, but we also need to prioritize defending the Western Hemisphere. We need to be able to project military power all over the world, but yet be ready to combat Islamic terrorists in the United States. We need to fully recapitalize the nuclear triad. All 3 legs of the nuclear triad need to be modernized to deter a nuclear attack, but we need to build a golden dome to defend against a nuclear attack. And so the simple fact that there are no trade-offs, there's no prioritization because the document basically prioritizes everything. That's why I'm skeptical, because we're just throwing money at everything and expecting to produce good results. What I would have preferred to see is a more restrained national strategy. What are our real security concerns? And then focus on those areas. We could do that for a fraction of $1.5 trillion a year. But we need to make hard choices about what America's real security needs are.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree. When I saw the Islamic terrorist piece of the national defense strategy, I just had to shake my head. That's like the zombie threat that keeps coming back. But let's talk a little bit about the Golden Dome. You brought it up. It's obviously something that President Trump is very focused on and very excited about. It's something that countries like Russia and China are very worried about. And it's something that we know will be very expensive. Congress has even called into question whether or not it can be funded, and technical experts who know much more about these technologies than I do have raised questions about whether or not this is even feasible. So, what can you tell us about what the National Defense Strategy says about Golden Dome and its position both in this military industrial base piece of the strategy as well as the strategy as a whole?
Well, the administration listed it as the top priority if you want to read it from top to bottom of their lines of effort. And so it certainly seems to be a high priority for the Trump administration. But again, right below that is full nuclear modernization. And so I have my doubts. There are plenty of people who are smarter than I am about the actual physics involved in creating a missile defense system. But I do know that this is the Golden Dome project. It's a gift to the defense primes because they're the ones who are going to benefit from this. And they're probably going to spend the next 20, 30 years developing these systems, and raking in huge amounts of money in the process of doing it. Whether they succeed, that remains to be seen. But I do know if we don't figure out what the actual priority is, are we gonna have a robust three-leg nuclear triad and a ballistic missile defense system? I don't think that's very sustainable, because here's a prediction for the future. If we go with both of these, I guarantee you that 30 years from now, the people who take our positions are going to be having a discussion about the next round of nuclear modernization and rebuilding Golden Dome 2. And we're talking trillions of dollars today. Just nuclear modernization I guarantee you, it's going to be well above $2 trillion when it's all said and done. And who knows how much Golden Dome is going to cost. But just think about 30 years from now, when our children and grandchildren are still paying for our nuclear modernization and the first Golden Dome. Like, they're going to be talking about, probably $10 trillion plus to replace both of those 30 years from now.
Yeah, well, it certainly seems like we're in a sort of vicious cycle here. I mean, I think we both agree that missile defense of the homeland should be a priority, right? Like, if the military is for anything, it's to defend the homeland. So what would be a better way to make sure that the homeland is secure from threats from, missiles that can reach the continental United States, whether they're conventional or nuclear? I would agree with you that Golden Dome isn't the answer. But, what would be a more sustainable and cost-effective way to address this challenge?
Well, the most obvious answer to that question is we need to find better ways of solving international problems than pointing a bunch of nuclear weapons at each other. If we could do that, I think everyone would be better off, and we'd save a whole lot of money. Short of that, it's just about making sure that we have a perfectly balanced defense policy. And I wish more than anybody that we could disinvent nuclear weapons, but we can't do that. It's just a reality, and we have to deal with them accordingly. So with that in mind, we need to figure out the exact number of nuclear weapons that we actually need in order to prevent nuclear war, to deter nuclear war. And we need to have the one, maybe two proper delivery systems to do that. Because I think it is possible for us to craft a nuclear weapons policy that can meet our security needs without antagonizing potential adversaries. And we're just not doing that. And we're really not doing that if we're going to go through full nuclear modernization and Golden Dome. So if we have an overwhelming number of nuclear weapons that we think we can that some fool actually believes that we can win a nuclear war, and that same person believes that we're immune to nuclear attack, then I think that actually makes the world a much more dangerous place than it is already.
Yeah, this is a really relevant conversation to be having, given the expiration of New START, which is just a couple days from when we're recording this video. And this question is obviously kind of looming in the background of a lot of debates here in DC. So last question here, Dan. I think we agree. We both want a sort of more restrained U.S. foreign policy that identifies a different way to deal with international disputes that doesn't involve military force. But does this national defense strategy overall move us closer to that than what we've seen from Biden and Trump one, or further away from that, in your view?
I unfortunately think it moves us further away. It just goes back to there is no priority. We're just throwing as much money as we possibly can at the military. So the military is just doing everything. We're building up our conventional forces. We're building up our nuclear forces. We're building Golden Dome. We're doing everything focused on all corners of the globe because we have this belief in the United States that more military forces means that we end up with a safer world, and I just don't think that's the case. I think that having one big hegemon, which is exactly what this NDS essentially proposes, it just makes us a bigger target, and it makes everyone around the world nervous about our intentions. And so I would argue for a much more restrained national defense strategy, one that prioritizes our real security concerns and builds only the military forces we need to meet those. That's the way, to really ensure peace, because we're not our mere presence isn't antagonizing others.
Yeah, all really great and important points. Thanks for joining us today, Dan, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. Make sure to check out the other videos in this series as well.